Greetings, y'all. Okay. Now the interesting thing about this is I found a control on my GoPro that allowed me to zoom in to this position, which I'm testing this out now for the first time to see what this looks like. So I was playing this blitz game and I got to this position as black, where I have a chance to turn a knight and pawn endgame into a king and pawn endgame by playing knight f3 check. Knight takes knight, pawn takes knight. But to do so, I give myself the dreaded triple pawns. The, f3, f5, and f7. So the thing I want to let you know is that the first thing is, do you think this is a good idea for black to go for the king and pawn endgame? So pause the video, take as much time as you want, or if you don't want to, we'll be done and we'll be back in a second. If you pause the video, welcome back. Okay. There's good things to be said. Black could play, king. Well, black could play literally b takes a5 and try to use the rook pawn mechanics, which are the hardest for a knight to stop. The knight has the hardest time stopping a rook pawn. So we could try b takes a5 and try to weasel a good position with two passed rook pawns against his knight, which would tie that knight up for the rest of the game. Or we could go strictly to the king and pawn end game with knight to f3 check. I chose, and if you've seen my other videos, you already know the answer. I go to the king and pawn ending every time I get a chance. But I have to consider as I go, this is triple pawns, it's terrible, as we all know. But there's two really good things that are coming out of this for black, is that white's king is trapped on g1. He's going to have to take the long road, king f1, e1, and d2 to get out. And also, the h2 pawn is not a passed pawn. If it was a passed pawn, it would be a no-go. We couldn't do it. But because the triple pawns are super weak and easy to get to. Now, that being the case, it's white's move, and white now has a important choice. His choice is to play a takes b, with black playing a takes b. Actually, I could just play a5 directly and then move my king and eat that pawn. Either way. So white could play a takes b. That would give black the choice of playing either a takes b or a5 and just producing a distant passed pawn. In fact, that would win. So he literally could not take my pawn because a5 wins. When I play a5, the new square of the pawn is 5 by 5, and he cannot get to e1 in one move. So I was looking at this, and it just occurred to me, he actually played the only move that has a chance to salvage this game. King f1 is the only move. A takes b loses to a5. So we got to give this guy super credit for recognizing he was about to get rolled with a distant passed pawn, and he played king to f1, the only move. It loses, but he's in the game. So that was a terrific decision on his part. So he played king e1. Now, at this point, he's really toast because my distant passed pawn, this a5 pawn, and then even more so this a7, which never moves, he has to put his entire concentration on this pawn. He must stop it from queening. And after he does that, he has to get this pawn. He can't do it. But I could make a mistake. So I played a4. He's in the square of the pawn. I'm like, fine, no problem. So I'm just moving up here. There's nothing he could do. Oh, look, he's going to attack my pawn. He can have it. This is the rule of the distant passed pawn. The distant pawn is the one that's the furthest away from the rest of the pawns. It commands the attention of the opposing king because it's a passed pawn. Nothing can stop it. Only the king can stop it from making a queen. Fine, he can have this, and then I got another one just like it. I'm going to Pac-Man, Waka, 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 and he's done. It's just that simple. This is basic stuff. I'm just going to give you a demonstration of Pac-Man fever. Now, it doesn't matter at this point if he takes the A pawn or whatever. I don't care. You know, he could play king to c5 to stop me from, you know, advancing. I just go to king to d5. At this point, he's now dead. It doesn't matter. He could take this. I could let him take this. It doesn't matter what he does. I'm going to take this f pawn if necessary. I'll queen this pawn. I'll take the f pawn if necessary. I can literally do anything I want. Give him this pawn. I can give him this pawn, and I'm still going to win because I'm going to get this pawn. His king is shut out from the defense of this pawn. He will lose. It doesn't matter. Now the thing is, like I said, we go back here when he made the only move you could make was king to f1. That is the only move that offers any chance of a draw or a win if I screw up, because he can't take. If he takes here, whoops, wrong. There we go. If he takes this, he's lost. F1, 4, I go to 4. E1, I go to 3. D1, I go to 2. C1, I queen. He's done. So, he played the correct move. I took his knight. King to F1 is the only move. Everything, you know, his other choice just absolutely just loses. So we got to give this guy credit. He realized he had to play king f1. That was an unbelievable move. I didn't think he could do it. To be honest, I hadn't looked at the pawn at that moment. As you know, I wasn't calculating. I was just playing some quick moves. So he played a great move. It loses, but it forces black to demonstrate that he has the technical knowledge of how to win the position, which I did have. So at this point, when I take this pawn, this game is over. Black has won because of what I showed you with the Pac-Man fever. Now I have another video that's got King and Pawn Fundamentals in the title. It's a K plus P Fundamentals. It's like about a 15-minute video, and it's really not very complicated at all. It's super simple. It shows you square of the pawn, also distant pass pawn, which is what this guy is here and this guy is here. They're far away from the rest of the group. And it also shows stuff like trebuchet, how to win when you have queen versus pawn on the 7th rank. Stuff that you must know to be a good player. This was another position where this is what a good player does. He knows what he's doing and he knows when he's winning. So I wanted you guys to see this in an uncomplicated setting, especially when I had these garbage triple pawns, because I avoid those like the plague. But I thought, man, I had triple pawns and I won, just like Bobby Fischer. Triple pawns are triple strong. That's what Bobby Fischer said. So I'm going to end on that. You guys know what to do. I'll talk to you later.